Potter profile on Broderick Bode. Broderick Bode was born in 1946 and worked at the British Ministry of Magic in the Department of Mysteries alongside Professor Saul Croker. Broderick was described as being a shallow-skinned wizard with a very mournful face. He also spoke in a very gloomy type tone and often had an unflattering gaze that made people uncomfortable. Despite his quirks, he was a very good friend of Arthur Weasley. In 1994, Broderick went to the Quidditch World Cup with Saul Croker. A year later, Broderick ran into Arthur Weasley when he was rushing to get Harry into the courtroom for his disciplinary hearing. That year, Broderick became a target for the Death Eaters on Voldemort's orders, as Voldemort was after a prophecy about himself and Harry, which just so happened to be stored in the Hall of Prophecies in the Department of Mystery. Voldemort was after Broderick because he was an unspeakable, and was informed by one of his Death Eaters, Avery, that an unspeakable was able to fetch any prophecy. As Lucius Malfoy was one of the Death Eaters who worked at the Ministry, Voldemort ordered him to place Broderick under the Imperius Curse to fetch the prophecy. However, Broderick somehow managed to resist the effects of the curse. Augustus Rookwood suggested this might have happened because, as Broderick wasn't unspeakable, he would know that if he touched the orb, it would trigger the defensive spells, as only somebody who was in the prophecy would be able to obtain it. Broderick resisting the Imperius Curse caused him to suffer from severe spell damage that made him lose his mind. At one point, Broderick believed he was a teapot, but the shock of it somehow managed to lift the Imperius Curse. The Ministry believed Bode had been injured in a workplace accident and sent him to St Mungo's Hospital for magical maladies and injuries, but his injuries were so severe he was moved to the spell damage ward. Broderick was left in his hospital bed comatose, but when he was awake, he was always staring at the ceiling, mumbling. That Christmas, Broderick's condition started to get better. When this information reached the Death Eaters, they decided they had no choice but to kill him, as they couldn't risk Broderick exposing their plan. While Broderick was in hospital, the Death Eaters sent him an anonymous Christmas present. Miriam Strout was the healer in charge of the ward, and was too busy delivering all of the Christmas presents to all the other patients on the ward, as well as overseeing off the visitors. She didn't check to see if Broderick's anonymous Christmas present, a plant, was dangerous, and even went against St Mungo's strict guidelines and allowed the plant to stay on Broderick's bedside table, as she believed the plant was a flitterbloom. A flitterbloom is a magical plant that apparently had long, swaying tentacles. It is completely harmless, but does bear a superficial resemblance to the deadly plant, Devil's Snare. As Broderick's speech and mobility had been improving, Strout encouraged him to look after the plant, as she believed this would help his improving condition. However, as Strout hadn't assessed the plant, she didn't know that it wasn't a flitterbloom, but actually Devil's Snare. When Broderick touched the plant, it instantly started to throttle him. He was sadly found dead in his bed the next morning. St Mungo's promised a full inquiry into his death, but the plant had seemed to have disappeared. Strout was soon suspended on full pay. After his death, Voldemort punished Avery for telling him the wrong information about unspeakables being able to collect any prophecy, especially as it could have exposed Voldemort's plan. The Daily Prophet reported Bode's death, titled Tragic Demise of the Ministry of Magic Worker, telling the wizard world it was a tragic accident. After the battle of the Department of Mysteries, the Order of the Phoenix realised the truth about Broderick's death.